Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you all. Okay, let's confirm we're all on the same page. So if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, kindly type in hi in the comment section so that we can get the session started. Okay, let's see what's happening in the comment section. Oh, Maria's main, good morning to you. 4511, good morning. 388, good morning. 23, good morning. Hey, Carrie, good morning to you. So we have Silver X, good morning. Thank you, Carrie. All right. So, okay, Innocent Babe's in the house. Good morning, Innocent Babe. Good morning, Scott Benji. Glad to have you around. I guess we have a full house today, and that's great. Thank you, Scott Benji. 1907, good morning. Daddy Ma, good morning to you. Oh, that's great. We have quite a positive response this morning. Thank you very much for that confirmation. So I want to welcome you all to yet another promising session on Extreme Speed Live, hosted by myself, Sheriff Daramola. In the next 1 hour, I shall be taking you on a trading journey where we shall be evaluating the financial market using technical parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us during the New York session today. And one thing we are going to be doing as usual is to go through all the pairs we've been monitoring since Monday. We want to see how well these pairs are doing and if there are any significant updates or ideas. I will be dishing them out throughout the course of the session. So I will be advising you to stay tuned in so that you don't miss out on any of these opportunities that I will be letting out as the session goes on. And if you have any pair you want us to look at, be it a commodity, currency pairs, cryptocurrency, stocks, options, whatever it is, feel free to drop it in the comment section and I will try to incorporate it into my plans for today. So, before I go into the chart, let's quickly run through the economic calendar because we have quite a series of events that is going to be definitely affecting the US dollar for today. And when we look at the economic calendar, we have the ADP employment change coming up in an hour from now. And we also have the Fed interest rate decision coming up in 6 hours from now, the Fed monetary policy statement as well. And then we have the almighty FOMC press conference too, coming up in 6 hours, 30 minutes from this time. So we want to get ourselves prepared for this event, and definitely we are going to be seeing structures in the market prior to this event in such a way that participants in this market will be anticipating this the results of this event, and definitely we are going to be seeing such patterns in the market. So what we are going to be doing today is to identify such patterns so that we can get ourselves prepared for any possible opportunity that the market is going to be giving us for today. So without further ado, let's dive into the chart and let's see what is going on in the market at this point in time. Well, the first pair we are going to be looking at is the US oil as usual. And on the US oil, we have a scenario where we have been in profit since the beginning of the week. Remember, we took advantage of this opportunity right above the $86 level at the beginning of the week, I think on Tuesday. And since then, price has been moving in our direction, and currently we're in over 170 pips in profit at this point in time. However, during the course of yesterday's trading session, hold on a second, let me give you an update on what we were looking at as at yesterday's live session. So we were around here during the live session yesterday, and one thing I stated here is that if for those who missed out on the opportunity we took advantage of at the beginning of the week, well, we want to be looking at a breakout of the $87 mark, retest to structure to give us an opportunity to take advantage of the trend continuation. And this is exactly what happened during the New York session yesterday. We saw the breakout of structure. Price came back to do a retest of structure, and we saw another move that took price right back into the $89 mark. So that move was about how many pips? That's over 200 pips in profit before we started seeing this bearish momentum at the rejection of the $89 mark. So you will have locked in some profit at this point, or at this point, as we started seeing this bearish momentum coming in. So going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plan? Well, before I go into this detail, let's scale up to the daily time frame, where we are going to be having an holistic view of what is really going on in this market. And let's see if the buyers we have been holding on to since the beginning of the week is still going to hold for us going into the New York session today. So let's dive into the daily time frame and let's see what is happening on this pair. So going into the daily time frame, this is what we can find here on the daily time frame. Please hold on a second, please. I want to attend to an issue here. So give me like 30 seconds, please. Oh, I'm so sorry for the break in transmission. I had to sort out an issue which has been sorted out. Please, don't mind my absence for a few minutes, a few seconds rather. So we are on the daily time frame on the US oil, and what we notice on the US oil on the daily time frame is that price action has been on a strong bullish momentum. And considering the fact that price has been on a strong bullish momentum here, we were able to connect the series of higher lows to give us that resultant bearish trend line, which has been guiding price action to the upside since the later part of last year. Then we zoomed into the structure in the last 6 months here, and we also had this bearish trend line, as we can see here, after connecting the series of lower highs here. So we had this bearish trend line. We took price right back into that bullish trend line here before we witnessed the breakout of that structure 3 weeks ago to give us a bullish signal. And in addition to this current structure we have here is the very important key level at the $86 mark, and this level has actually been a major determinant of price action in the past. We can see every time participant price comes within this level, we saw a bullish momentum here, though we had buying pressure around here, but this was met with strong resistance from the sellers as it took price break down the $86 level, and throughout the month of September price was trading right below that level. However, during the early days of the month of October, we saw the significant breakout of the structure, and we are going to be seeing this as a bullish signal. And whenever we have a breakout of structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back to do a retest of structure, which is exactly what happened here, followed by a consolidation phase right below the $86 level. Then a breakout of the $86 level confirmed that we might be moving in for the second wave of that bullish momentum that started 3 weeks ago. So we had this bullish momentum that started 3 weeks ago. We had a retracement phase into the structure. Price gave us a reversal pattern. We had a breakout of the neckline. And what we are seeing here in the last couple of days is a retest of the neckline, followed by another engulfing candle. So going into the New York session today, we want to see what is really going on at this point in the market. We want to see what is going on here on lower time frame to decipher if we are going to be having a situation where we are going to be having a trend continuation pattern, something like probably a bullish rectangular pattern, a wedge or a flag pattern, whatever it is, to send price going to the upside. So that is one scenario we're going to be looking at. And we're also going to be looking at the situation here if that structure here is going to be turning out to a reversal pattern. Remember, if we look at what has been happening here in the last 4 days, we can see how strong the $90 level has been. We can see this level has been a selling niche for participants in this market, as every time buyers try to break through the $90 area, we have been seeing selling pressure from that area. So there is a likelihood that we could have a reversal pattern that might likely send price breaking down the $86 level, retest of structure to send price going to the downside. So what we want to be doing here is to scale down to a much lower time frame, after which we want to see what is really going on around the $90 mark area to now decipher what next we want to be doing. Well, in order to do that, let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame so that we can see what is really going on at that point in the market. So scaling down to the 1 hour time frame, what is the structure we can find here? So on the 1 hour time frame, we can see how that level here, hold on a second, around the $89 level has been a selling niche for participants in this market since the beginning of the week. So we had the first touch of the $89 level on Monday. Last week Thursday, we had this touch of this $89 level, which brought selling pressure into the market, thereby pushing price down. And I told you yesterday that the structure here evolved into a head and shoulder pattern, which we saw with a breakdown retest of the structure, sending price back to our demands, to our buy zone, which we took advantage of as at yesterday. So right now, price has come back into the $89 level. And what are we noticing here? We can see that we have another selling pressure from that level, pushing price to the downside. So what this simply tells us is that the $89 level at this point in time is a strong selling niche for participants in this market. So we want to be very mindful of how we are going to be trading these at this point in time. However, considering the fact that price has broken right above the $86 level, well, one thing we want to be doing now is to take into consideration this impulsive move that we have been enjoying since the beginning of the week, and let's see if this is going to be a retracement phase of that impulse leg. So if this is going to be a retracement phase, how far will this retracement phase going to go? We don't know how far it's going to go. Is it going to go to as far as the $87 mark before we start seeing buying pressure, or is it going to go as far as the $86 level area before we start seeing buying pressure that will incite the second wave of the bullish momentum that started at the beginning of the week? Well, in order to understand how far this retracement phase is going to go, one thing we want to be doing here is to bring out our Fibonacci retracement tool. Then we run it through the previous impulse leg as we have it here, and then we should be aiming at somewhere between the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg, which is our golden zone area where we want to be looking forward to another buying opportunity. So let's quickly identify that structure here. So we have somewhere between the 78 and the 50% retracement of that previous impulse leg. So we have somewhere around here. So let's delete the retracement tool and let's see. Okay, now we have a structure around here. So what we are going to be looking forward to during the New York session today is one, we have two parameters to guide our action. So we have the $87 MAC and also we have the buy zone, which we have identified right around the $87 area and the $86 area. So what we are going to be looking forward to during the New York session today is to wait for this retracement phase to end, and the only way we can know the retracement phase has ended is when we start sighting reversal pattern here on our lower time frame. It could be a double bottom structure, inverse head and shoulder pattern, a wedge, or whatever it is. Breakout retest of structure on lower time frame will incite a trend continuation to the upside. So what we are going to be doing really on the US oil is to remain patient and let's see how far this retracement phase will go. And if we finally have that reversal structure right within that buy zone or above the $87 MAC, then we want to be joining the rally to the upside. And if a breakout of the $89 finally happens, that is, we see price break out of the structure during the New York session today, that is another good signal that the bullish momentum we are in is quite a strong one. And as a result of this, a retest of structure with buying pressure right above the $89 MAC will be giving us another leverage to take advantage of adding another position to our existing trade on the US oil. So on the US oil right now, the only thing we need to do right now is just remain patient and wait for price action to fall. We want to wait this retracement phase to end, and let's wait and see how it's going to relate to the $87 structure. And if we look closely into the structure here, we can see that we had this reversal pattern as well. Following this move, we saw something like this. We saw the breakout of that structure, and breaking out of that structure, we expect that price will come back to do a retest. So let's see what is really going to happen during the New York session today. So if you have any question regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section and let me see if there is any help I could render in that regard. So let's run through the charts and see if there are any questions. So I'll be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the chart and see what we have here. Okay, we have someone asking for the Euro USD. Kai wants us to do Euro USD. Of course, we are going to be treating Euro USD. Just stay tuned in. I think in the next couple of pairs now, we are going to be looking at the Euro USD. So stay tuned in so that you don't miss out on that session. Okay, so we have Daddy Ma wants to buy Dogecoin. I don't think I understand what you're talking about there. Okay, so we have Dino. Thank you. All right. 359, good morning. How are you doing today? So we have RS Chaki. Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. All right, so in the absence of no question, I guess it's time we move on to the next pair. And the next pair we are going to be looking at is the option US Tech. So on the US Tech, we had quite a massive impulsive move to the downside as at during the New York session yesterday. So we saw another rejection of the $11,550 level here, which is a level that was respected at the beginning of the week by the sellers And what we saw yesterday was quite interesting, as we saw this bearish momentum that took price right back into the $11,250 level, which was a level we identified to be our buy zone for the week. However, I missed this move anyways, but for those who took advantage of this move, of this bearish momentum, kudos to you guys for taking such a move, for being on standby to take such a move. Well, at this point in time, like I told you on Monday, that considering the fact that we had this impulsive move to the upside, let me show you. So we had this impulsive move. Then I told you that we want to be patient to wait for price action to come back into the structure, after which we are going to be looking out for reversal patterns here to join the trend continuation to the upside. And what we can see here in the last 24 hours is quite interesting. As we can see, the first thing I first of all observe here is the sharp rejection of the $11,250 mark, which is a sign that we might be having buying pressure from this area. And if we look at the structure we have here throughout the course of the New York session till this moment, we can see that price action has been caught within a consolidation phase right within the $11,250 and the $11,350 level, emphasizing the indecision that is in this market right now. So the next thing we want to be doing here is to identify what's really going on here, and let's see if we can have an opportunity that we could be taking advantage of during the New York session today. Well, the next thing we want to be doing here is to bring out our line chart so that we can have specific points of connection. So we have the resistance level of this channel right around the $11,350 level. I think that was where, okay, so we have the resistance level here. So let's label this. So we have $11,350. So I would like to place this at the top right hand side of my screen. So let's bring back our line chart. Sorry, our candle chart. So we have the $11,350 level. So what we saw here, what we are seeing here is more or less like a bearish rectangular pattern. So this is what we can see here. And we can see price has been caught within a consolidation phase around between the $11,350 and the $11,250 level. So what I will be looking forward to at this point is that we remain patient. That's the first thing, and wait out for signals that will be guiding us going forward. So the signal will either come in the form of a breakout of the structure, that is a breakout retest to give us a confirmation to join the rally to the upside, or we could be waiting for price to break down the 11,250, retest of structure, selling pressure right below this level, then we could join the decline to the downside. If we take into consideration this structure here, this structure is more or less a bearish rectangular pattern, and this structure is definitely, from a technical standpoint, from a theoretical standpoint, is supporting a trend continuation pattern. So from a technical standpoint, we should be expecting something like a breakdown retest of the 11,250 to join the decline to the downside. However, it's not all the time price action does that. And because of the structure we have here, and considering the impulsive move we witnessed here during the course of last week's trading session, I want us to take into consideration this move, as this might likely be a retracement of that move. And as you can see, price is right above the 11,250. So if there is a likelihood that we might be having a breakout of that 11,350 to incite a trend continuation. But if that does not happen, it's okay. We hold on to our sell momentum if we have a breakdown, retest of the 11,250, and then we could join the decline to the downside on the US tech. So this is how we want to trade the US tech for today. If you have any questions, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section of this video. All right. Okay, Steamroller, good morning. Okay, of course, we are going to be doing the GBPUSD as well. 960, good morning. All right, so let's move on to the next pair. So the next pair we are going to be looking at is the EURUSD. And on the EURUSD, we were stopped out in a loss yesterday. As we saw this impulsive move that took price right back into the 0.98500 level. And let me quickly run through what my expectation is going to be like for today. But before I do, let's run to the higher time frame and let's see what's going on the higher time frame, and let's see if we can still buy the Euro USD going forward. Now on the daily time frame, like I showed you on Monday, we have this bearish momentum here, and we were able to connect a series of lower highs here to give us a bearish trend line. In fact, I have two trend lines here. I have the main trend line, which is the black tick line on your screen, and I have the temporary trend line, which is the dotted line on your screen. And this dotted trend line has been our guide since the beginning of the year. As you can see how this trend line has been holding selling pressure, pushing price right to the downside since the beginning of this year. So that being said, then the next thing we looked at here is the very important structure at the $1 MAC. So we have the structure here. We can see how price has been respecting this level. So this level has been a major determinant of price action in the past. If we go to as far as the month of July, we saw how this level was a buying niche for participants in this market. So every attempt by the sellers to push price to the downside there was met with strong resistance from the buyers. The same thing also happened during the month of August stroke the early days of the month of September. We saw how that level also was a strong buying niche for participants in this market, but was finally broken to the downside during the later part of the month of September. So we had a breakdown of that structure, and since that breakdown happened, price has been trading right below the $1 MAC. And what this simply tells us is that the sellers are very strong in this market. However, we had an interesting structure that happened last week when we saw the breakout of the $1 MAC, but this was immediately followed by selling pressure, pushing price back below the $1 MAC, like I said, emphasizing the strength of the sellers at this point. Then another thing that caught my attention on the Euro USD was the higher lows that was identified here. And when we connect the series of higher lows here, we had this uniform very bullish trend line, which has been holding a bullish momentum in the last 4 weeks now, 4 to 5 weeks now. It has been holding this bullish momentum, and this bullish momentum culminated in the breakout of this $1 MAC. So with that being said, followed by a breakout of this bearish trend line, this is more or less looking like a bullish signal from a technical standpoint. So what we are going to be looking forward to at this point is, following the bullish breakout of that structure, we expect the price will come back to do a retest of the structure, followed by buying pressure on lower time frame. Then we could be looking to take advantage of that trend continuation to the upside. And right now, price is back within the buy zone, which we identified on Monday, which also lines up with the bearish trend line that was broken last week, you can see, and also lines up with the bullish trend line that has been respected by price action in the last 4 to 5 weeks. So this is more or less a very sensitive level we need to look at going into the New York session today. So what is really happening around here is where our focus is going to be during the live session today. So in order to understand what is really going on at this point, we want to be scaling down to the lower time frame to have a better look. So scaling down to the lower time frame, that is, let's say the 1 hour time frame. Okay, or let me use the 2 hours time frame. Let me see what's happening on the 2 hours time frame. So let's use the 2 hours time frame, for instance. And so look at what we have here. So since the beginning of the week, price started at around the 0.99650. We were caught within a consolidation phase. Remember, we took advantage of the breakdown retest of the structure at the beginning of the week. Price came right back into the 0.98598,600 area, went back up again, and we saw this impulsive move that took us out of our buy position yesterday. And as soon as price got into the 0.98600 area again, we start seeing buying pressure from that level. Now, with the information I just showed you here, and coupled with the structure we identified yesterday, that is the bearish trend line here. Remember, we identified this bearish trend line yesterday after connecting the series of higher lows here. So we had this bearish trend line which has been respected in the last 1 week now. So we had the breakout of that structure during the early hours of today to signal that we might be having a bullish momentum. Now, another thing I want to show you here is this. Besides the fact that price is within the buy zone we identified on the daily time frame, it's important that we note here that the 0.98600 level has been holding buying pressure. So ever since price we started the week, as soon as price comes within the 0.98600 level, what we notice here is that buyers come in, finding the euro very cheap enough to buy. So what we are seeing here is more or less like a reversal pattern at this point, leading into the breakout of the structure. So in order to make our job easier to buy the euro USD going into the New York session today, I was able to identify the 0.9900 level, which has been a major determinant at least in the last 48 to 72 hours now. We saw the breakdown of that structure, breakout retest, price broke down retest again, and we saw selling pressure here, and right now we are right around the 0.9900 level. So what I want to be seeing during the New York session today is a breakout of the structure, retest on lower time frame to give me a confirmation to join the rally to the upside. So this is what I want to be seeing on the Euro USD. As long as price remains above the 0.9900 level, I want to be taking advantage of a buy momentum. So that is how we want to buy the Euro USD for today. So if we have a situation where price continue to climb to the upside and we have a breakout of the 0.99500 area, we have a structure here, remember. If we have a breakout of that structure, price comes down, retest the structure, we add more position to our existing trade. And if a breakout of the $1 mark happens, a retest of that level also will give us another opportunity to add more position to the existing trade. So that is that for the buying potential here on the Euro USD. However, it's important that we also take into consideration the other scenario, that we could be having a selling momentum here, considering the fact that price has been on a bearish momentum since the beginning of the week, and there is a likelihood that we could have a selling momentum. So what do we want to see here to take advantage of that sell move? Well, the first thing we want to be doing here is to remain patient first, and if price does not go to the upside and price continue to go down to the downside, well, I'll be advising us to remain patient and see if we are going to be having a bearish engulfing candle, taking out all the buy position around the 0.98600 level, then this will give us a signal that we want to be going bearish. But remember, we are not getting too excited when this happens, as we want to wait for further confirmation to give us a leverage to join the decline. And this confirmation will likely come in the form of a retest of that structure. And if you look at the retest of the structure here, we have the demand zone here. We want to see the retest of that structure. And the retest also lines up exactly with the bearish trend line that has been guiding price action since the beginning of the week. So what we want to be seeing is the retest followed by selling pressure on lower time frame. Then we could join the decline to the downside. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to if we want to be selling the Euro USD. So we are not selling here. We are not selling here. We want to wait for the breakdown to happen, then a retest of structure, then we could take advantage of that bearish move to the downside on this one. And if that does not happen, I'm looking forward to buying at right above the 0.9900 level. So that is that on the Euro USD. I hope I was able to simulate all the possible scenarios that we could be on standby to take advantage of during the New York session today. And if you have any question regarding what I've just explained on the Euro USD, or you need further clarification, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. Innocent Bibbs wants me to do gold before the end of the session. Of course, we are going to be treating gold. Remember, we always monitor all the pairs we have chosen since the beginning of the week, and the gold is part of the pairs we chose at the beginning of the week. So definitely we are going to be looking at the gold as well. So the next pair we are going to be looking at is the GBPUSD. So what is happening on the GBPUSD? Let's quickly run through what our expectations were as at yesterday before we start thinking of looking at an holistic perspective of what we're looking at. So on the GBPUSD, we were stopped out as well yesterday. It was quite funny. Anyways, we stopped out. As we can see, price has continued to trend on the lower side. Um, However, since the beginning of the week, we took advantage of that move right below the right below the 1.15800 level. And as we can see, price has consistently respected this bearish trend line we were able to identify since the later part of last week. Though we had a breakout of the trend line here, price came immediately under the trend line. And since then, price has been respecting that trend line. So we had this impulsive move during the course of the New York session yesterday, taking price to as far as the 1.14350 level, and then price came back again into the trend line. And since the early hours of today, we have witnessed a consolidation phase right around that bearish trend line. So what this simply tells us is that we are at a very critical point in the market. We are right around the bearish trend line, and we have seen a consolidation phase here, emphasizing the indecision in this market. So there is two possible scenarios we want to be looking forward to at this point, just exactly around the 1.151500 level. The first scenario is a situation where we might be seeing certain pressure from this area, turning out to be a reversal pattern, breakdown retest to structure on lower time frame. Then we could join the trade to the downside. That is one scenario. Then the other scenario is a possible breakout of this trend line, which also lines up with the 1.15150 level. And if we cite a breakout of that structure, remember, we are not getting too excited. We're only going to be seeing this as a bullish signal at first, but we want to be patient enough to wait for confirmations to happen, as the breakout could actually be a false one. So a confirmation will come in the form of a retest of either the bearish trend line or the 1.15150 level, after which we look out for buying pressure on lower time frame or a reversal pattern. Whatever comes up, then we take advantage of the trend continuation to the upside. So these are the scenarios we are looking forward to on the GBPUSD. But before I close on the GBPUSD, let's quickly look at what is happening on the higher time frame and see if the structure we've identified here on the 1 hour time frame still support what is going on the higher time frame. So scaling up to the daily time frame, let's quickly have a look what is going on the daily time frame. Remember, we had this very important structure at the 1.1400 level. Remember, for the past 3 weeks, though we are on a very strong bearish momentum. Let me quickly start from that. We're on a strong bearish momentum here, and we had this bearish trend line, and price has consistently respected that bearish trend line. And at the beginning of I think during the later part of last week's trading session, we saw our price was caught within a channel right around that bearish trend line as well, giving us a clue of an indecision here, as participants don't know if we are going to be having price continue to the downside to incite another wave of a bearish momentum, or we could be having a breakout retest of that structure to push price to the upside. So that is the scenario we have here, looking at the bearish trend line. However, if we zoom closer into what has been happening the last couple of months here, we will notice that the 1.1400 level is a very critical and significant level that has been a major determinant of price action in the last couple of months. Look at what happened here in the month of September. We saw how we had buying pressure around this level before we finally witnessed the breakdown of that structure. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we have a breakdown of the structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back to do a retest of that structure, which is exactly what happened here, as we saw price come back and was immediately rejected by the sellers to push price to the downside. So in the last 2 weeks now, we have been seeing multiple rejection of this level by the sellers, giving us a clue of how strong the sellers are at this point in the market. But one thing we observed is that the momentum of the sellers kept reducing with time. So we saw how huge this momentum was, and if we compare this momentum with what we have here, we can see that the momentum has actually reduced. And if we compare to what we saw here, that is 2 weeks ago, we saw that this momentum reduced further. And what this simply tells us is that it appears that the sellers are losing the momentum that they gathered at the during the course of the month of September. So as a result of this, we were able to have this higher lows connected. So we had this bullish trend line that we had here. Even though we had this bullish trend line, we were very wary of buying the GBPUSD simply because of how strong the sellers are at the 1.1400 level. So because of the 1.1400 level, we couldn't buy despite seeing this bullish trend line. So what we said is that we are going to be waiting for a significant signal in the form of the breakout of the structure to give us a signal that we will be having a bullish momentum. And this is exactly what happened at the beginning of I think last week trading session. We saw the significant breakout of the structure, and if you remember, we took advantage of this move right into the 1.16500 level. And one thing we observed on the daily time frame here is that as soon as price got into the 1.16500 level here, we started seeing selling pressure from that area, which also lines up with the bearish trend line we identified earlier. Let me zoom out so you can see. So you can see the bearish trend line here. So it also lines up with the bearish trend line and led into a reversal pattern where we saw the breakdown of the 1.15500 level, giving us a clue that probably the sellers will be respecting this bearish trend line one more time to send price crashing to the downside. But one thing I want us to know here is that considering the 1.1400 level that was broken last week, for buyers to have broken out of this 1.1400 level, a very strong selling niche for sellers in this market, I'm of the opinion that this buying momentum has come to stay. So what we want to be looking forward to after citing a breakout of a structure like this is that price will likely come back to do a retest of that structure, which also lines up with that bullish trend line we identified earlier to take advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. So the next thing we want to be doing here, following this move, this bearish move, which I will call a retracement phase of the previous impulse leg here, let's see what is really going on around this area to make a decision for today. So in order to understand what is really going on here, we need to scale down to a much lower time frame, and that will be most appropriate to scale down to, let's say, the 2 hours time frame here to see what is really going on at this point in the market. So right on the 2 hours time frame, remember we are still within that buy zone here, and we have the 1.14 level here, the very important 1.14 level which was broken last week. And I was showing you on the daily time frame that whenever we have a breakout of a structure, we expect that price at one point in time will come back to retest that structure. But as we see things here, price has been respecting this bearish trend line since the beginning of the week. In fact, since the later part of last week, price has been respecting this bearish trend line. And right now, price is right at a very critical level at the 1.15100 level. So what we am saying here is that if price respects this trend line one more time in such a way that we start having reversal pattern here, breakdown, retest to structure on our lower time frame, then we want to be joining decline to the downside. And one thing I will say here, if this sell momentum happens, as soon as price gets into the 1.1400 level, we want to move our stop loss to lock in some profit, as we don't know how price is going to relate to the current structure here, as we could actually see buying pressure from here. Like I said, we want to be waiting for a retest to structure to join the rally to the upside. That's a very good possibility that we will not ignore. And if we have a breakdown of that structure, retest of that level, we could actually add another sell position to our existing trade. Now, the other scenario that we want to be looking at here is, what if price does not come to as far as a 1.1400 level before we start seeing that second wave of that bullish momentum? Well, what we want to be looking forward to is a breakout of the 1.15150 level. That is this level here. So to make our job easier, I've been able to identify the structure which also lines up with the bearish trend line here. So if we are going to be having a breakout of that bearish trend line, that means that trend line is no longer strong enough to hold selling pressure. And if that leads to the breakout of that structure, we want to remain patient and wait for price action to come back, do a retest of either the bearish trend line here or the 1.15150 level. But most importantly, we want to be looking for buying pressure. Then we want to be taking advantage of the trend continuation to the upside. So these are the two scenarios we want to be looking forward to on the GBP USD. Now let's see what is happening here on the lower time frame for those who might be thinking of selling the GBPUSD around here. So let's see what's happening around this level on the 15 minutes time frame. So let's scale down to the 15 minutes time frame and see if we are going to be having a reversal pattern around that level. So on the 15 minutes time frame here, well, this is the 1.15150 level. Let me show you so that we can see it here on the 15 minutes time frame. So we have the 1.15150 level, and since the beginning of today's trading session, we can see how that level has been a selling niche for participants in this market. So we have a structure that looks more like a triple top structure, which is more or less a strong reversal pattern. However, we are not going to be joining any sell momentum just because we are seeing the selling pressure here, as we want to see for a better signal. As you can see here, we have buying pressure around this area at the 1.14870 level. So because of this buying pressure here, we can't be selling around this area. We want to see a situation where price breaks down this demand zone, that is, take out all the buy position here to give us a signal of a bearish momentum. And remember, when we sight a signal like that, we are not getting too excited. We want to wait for further confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of that structure before we want to be thinking of selling the GBPUSD. So we will either see a retest of this level of the 1.14900 level or the bearish trend line here. Then we look out for selling pressure on lower time frame. Then we could actually join the decline to the downside. But if a breakdown of this level does not happen, well, we don't want to be doing anything. We want to be waiting for a breakdown to happen before we want to be selling this. So I have two scenarios here on the GBPUSD. Let me just summarize what I'm looking forward to here. So the first scenario is the breakdown retest of this level to join the decline. That is the first scenario. Then the second scenario is a breakout of the 1.15150 level to give us a signal of a bullish momentum. Remember, we are not joining at the breakout. We wait for a retest to structure, followed by buying pressure on lower time frame. Then we could join the rally to the upside. I hope I've made myself clear on this one, and I was able to simulate the possible scenarios that is likely going to be happening on the GBPUSD for today. So if you have any question whatsoever, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section, and let's see how I can be of help in that regard. Okay, Steamroller, you're welcome. I'm glad you found it well explanatory. I wish you best of luck on the GBPUSD during the New York session today. Then we have Maria Asmin. Good morning. That's the second time you're saying good morning. Okay. So 658, I'll take that as a compliment. Boris09 says hi. All right. Hello. How are you? All right. In the absence of no question, I guess we will be moving to the next pair, which is the gold, I guess. Okay. Yes, it's the gold metal we are going to be talking now. I hope Innocent Babe is still in the house. So we are going to be treating the gold in a moment. So first of all, let's quickly run through what our expectations were as at yesterday, and then we move on to see if our expectations will still hold water for the New York session today. So as at yesterday, we were around where? Yesterday we were around this point. Okay, we were around the $1,655 level as at yesterday, and I told you we took advantage of this move yesterday as price moved in our favor with over how many pips in profit? Over 800 pips in profit before we witnessed this downtrend scenario, this selling momentum that took us out of that position. Remember, we moved our stop loss to lock in some profit, so we were taken out of that position yesterday. And again, if we scale down to the lower time frame, we had price come back again to do a retest of structure and we join the rally to the upside. Remember, I told you yesterday that if for those who missed out on this opportunity here, that we could wait for two scenarios, that is price comes back to do a retest of the structure to join the rally to the upside, or we wait for price to break out of the $1,655 level to join the rally to the upside. So well, the first one happened as we saw price come back into the $1,645 level to give us another opportunity to join the rally to the upside. So if you are taking advantage of this move right here, kudos to you for being on standby to take advantage of that move. So the next thing we want to be doing here is to move our stop loss to lock in some profit. So at this point, I will be suggesting that somewhere below the $1,650 level seems most appropriate to move our stop loss. And the reason why we are also moving our stop loss is simply to protect our position against any sudden pullback that might likely happen from this area. And the reason why we are saying that there is likely going to be a sudden pullback is this. If we look at the current structure we have here, look at how important that $1,655 level has been for the sellers in the last 24 hours. So during the New York session yesterday, we saw how sellers push price to the downside as soon as buyers took it to the 1,655 level, and the same thing is happening right now. As we can see, price is right back at the $1,655 level, which at this point in time is looking like a strong selling niche for participants in this market. So because of this, we want to be moving our stop loss to lock in some profit, as we never can tell. We could be having selling pressure right below this level, evolving into a reversal pattern that might likely send price crashing to the downside. So we want to be very, very mindful of that possibility. However, the possibility of a trend continuation on this pair is still very, very open for us, as we could still see a breakout of the 1,655 level, and if that happens, retest of structure followed by buying pressure on lower time frame will be giving us an advantage to add more position to our existing trade. And remember, we have major events coming up today, which I was able to spool out. I think I showed you at the beginning of the session. We have the ADP employment change coming up in, I think, how many minutes from now? I think about 20 to 30 minutes from now, we're having the ADP employment change. We also have the Fed interest rate decision coming up today in about 6 hours from now. We also have the Fed monetary policy statement and also the FOMC press conference. In fact, these are major events that is likely and most likely going to be a catalyst for price action for today. So we want to get ourselves prepared for this, and what we are seeing in the market right now is a reflection of the anticipation of the participants in this market prior to this event. So that's why we're having a consolidation phase like this. So we don't know what is really going to happen around this area. So move your stop loss accordingly, lock in your desired profit, and let's see how participants in this market is going to be relating to the 1,655 level. And if we have a breakout of that structure, then we want to be joining a trend continuation at a retest of this area. Remember, our take profit target still remains at the $1,680 level, and there is a catch to this, which I showed you at the beginning of the week. I said if price comes within the bearish trend line that we identified on the daily time frame, that is somewhere around the $1,665 level, we want to move our stop loss again to protect our position, as we want to see how price is going to relate to the structure. Are we going to be seeing a reversal pattern here to push price down? Or are we going to be having a breakout, retest to structure, add more position to our existing trade, and then join the rally to the upside? So these are the scenarios we are looking forward to on the XAUUSD. So we're still looking for buying opportunity here. So let's see how this plays out. Now, for the other scenario, that just in case price does not continue to the upside, so does it mean that we're not going to trade the XAUUSD? Of course, no. We are always getting ourselves prepared for any possible scenario that is likely going to be happening. So considering the fact that we have the 1,655 level turning out to be a selling niche for participants in this market, that is if price does not break out of that structure, then if that does not happen, well, what I'll be advising us to do, and if price continues to go to the downside, breaking down the 1,645 level, well, that's probably going to be a bearish signal. That is the breakdown of the 1,645 level. So that means we have something like a reversal pattern here to send price going to the downside. And if that happens, we are not getting too excited. We are waiting for a retest to structure, followed by selling pressure on lower time frame. Then we could actually join the decline to the downside. So this is how we want to be trading the XAUUSD today. So I was able to share with you two scenarios for buying opportunity. That is, look out for price breakout of that structure, retest, breakout, retest, hard more position. That is one. And then if this area turn out to be a selling niche, that is, sellers take over the market from the buyers, and we are taking out of our buy position at where we have moved our stop loss to, breakdown of the 1645 will be a signal for a bearish momentum, retest of structure, followed by selling pressure on lower time frame. Then we could join the decline to the downside. So that is that on the XAUUSD. I hope innocent babies in the house. And if anyone else has any question regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section of this video, and let's see how I can be of help in that regard. All right, so we have, okay, innocent babe, okay, that's good. And then we have 5772. All right, innocent babe, I hope my explanation was clear enough for you to take advantage of any opportunity that the market presents us during the New York session today. All right, okay, so we have Boris09 wants me to do XLM USD. Okay, let's see how I will be able, let's see if we'll be able to do that. I still have the USDJPY to talk about, and let's see if there is still time. If there is still time, be rest assured I will be treating that. You actually brought this very late, so let's see if I can squeeze it in anyways. So the next pair we are going to be looking at is the USDJPY. And on the USDJPY, we had quite an interesting scenario here, which was which we had a strong shakeout in the market in the last 24 hours. So at the beginning of the week, we took advantage of this bullish momentum at the breakout retest of the 147.800 area, and we took this move into that structure. And yesterday, we were here yesterday. Where were we yesterday when okay, we were around this point yesterday. Okay, we were around here yesterday. And one thing I made mention here yesterday, that if we start seeing buying pressure right above the 147 Japanese yen level, which is the neckline of the reversal pattern we identified earlier in the week, then we want to be looking forward to buying opportunity on the USDJPY. And if you remember vividly at the beginning of the week, we were able to identify this reversal pattern right around this level, and we saw the breakout of the reversal pattern here at the 147 Japanese yen level. Price came back to do a retest of structure here, and if we scale down to the lower time frame, we started seeing buying pressure around here, so we took advantage of this move, and price moved about how many pips in our favor? Moved over 150 pips in our favor before we started seeing selling pressure again at around the 148,500 level to move our stop loss to lock in some profit. And since then, price has been trading to the downside on this one. So what I'll be saying here on the USDJPY is that any buying momentum here is going to be put on hold. And the reason why I'm saying that it's going to be put on hold is simply because of the current structure we are able to identify on the 1 hour time frame. If we look at the structure closely, we can see the peak that price got to as at yesterday was at around the 148.500 area here, which is a lower high compared to the previous structure that we had here. So we had a lower high here. So what we are looking at when we started this lower high is to connect the series of lower highs here to give us that resultant bearish trend line. So we had a bearish trend line figured out. So the bearish trend line is going to be our guide going into the New York session today. So what we want to be looking forward to, hold on a second, let me take this out of the picture, as we know we don't need this right now. And then the 140, okay, 140, 147 is still okay. So what I want to be looking forward to, like I said, I'm not going to be buying this right now because we already have a lower high compared to the previous structure we have here. So what I want to be seeing here for me to buy the USDJPY is to witness a significant breakout of that bearish trend line, which also lines up with the 147.800 area to give me a bullish signal. remember, when we see bullish signals like this, we are not getting too excited, as we want to wait for further confirmation to happen, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of either the bearish trend line or the 147 Japanese yen level, 147.800 level, to join the trend continuation to the upside. But if the breakout does not happen and price comes back to do a retest of this bearish trend line at any point in time, followed by selling pressure on lower time frame, then I want to be thinking of selling the USDJPY. And if that leads to a further breakdown of the 147, then retest of structure, which also lines up with the bearish trend line, followed by selling pressure below this level, will welcome addition to the sell position on the USDJPY. So what this simply means is this: we have two structures that will be guiding any bullish momentum here. That is, we want to see a breakout. Sorry, hold on. So we want to see a breakout of the 147.800. That is, price breaks out of that level, breaks out of the bearish trend line, retest to structure to confirm a trend continuation. That is the first scenario. The second scenario is looking forward to selling opportunities if we have multiple rejection of this bearish trend line, join the decline, had more position at the breakdown retest of the 147 Japanese yen level to join the decline to the downside. And if price does not go this far, that is, price does not go this far, then if a breakdown of the structure happens, retest of structure followed by selling pressure right below the 147 Japanese yen level, then we could be thinking of joining that decline to the downside on the USDJPY. So that is my scenarios here on the USDJPY. Unfortunately, I'm already 5 minutes out of time, and I need to do a recap of what we've talked about since the beginning of the session, for the sake of those who are not part of the beginning. So I'm sorry, for the XLM, I wouldn't be able to treat that for today. So let's see what we can do tomorrow. So I would advise you come in very early so that you can drop in the pairs you want us to look at the beginning of the session, so that I can run things in such a way that I'll be able to treat them before the session ends. So let's quickly run through what our expectations are on the pairs we deliberated on today. So the first pair we looked at today is the US oil, and on the US oil, we continue to look forward to buying opportunity. And though we saw selling pressure right around the $89 level, so as at last week we saw the first selling pressure from this level, that's the first one. Then during the New York session, during the early hours of today, we saw another selling pressure from this area to give us a clue that the sellers are strong at this point in the market. However, following the breakout of the $86 level last week, price coming back to do a retest of the $86 level one more time, I am of the opinion that we are having bullish momentum as long as price remains above the $86 mark. So I want to be taking into consideration this impulsive move that started this week. We saw this impulsive move on Tuesday, which we took advantage of. I want to be seeing this bearish momentum that we've been witnessing in the last 12 hours to be a retracement of that impulse leg. So we've identified a buy zone right above the $86 level and somewhere around the $87 area, where we want to be looking forward to buying pressure from this area. It could come in the form of a reversal pattern, so we want to get ourselves prepared at a breakout retest on lower time frame to join the trend continuation to the upside. So our take profit target will still remain at around the let me extend it to, okay, let's use our Fibonacci extension tool, running it through this impulse leg here, and we should be aiming at somewhere between the 127.2 and the 1414 area. So I will be looking at somewhere around the $91 level, or let's say the $92 area, as my take profit target for the US oil. So let's see how price action plays out in the next couple of hours. Even though we're expecting that bullish momentum, let's see. I just hope that the $86 level or the $87 level will hold buying pressure during the New York session today to take advantage of that trend continuation to the upside. And if a breakdown of that level happens, well, a retest of structure should give us a confirmation to join the decline to the downside. So let's get ourselves prepared for either of the scenarios that might likely happen. So the next pair we looked at was the US Tech, and on the US Tech we were able to identify a channel right within the 11,350 and the 11,250 area. So following this impulsive move that happened yesterday, we saw that price has been caught within a channel which appears to be a bearish rectangular pattern. So we want to be waiting for a signal in the form of either a breakout or retest of the structure to join whatever direction price will be telling us to go. So if we are going to be selling, we want to see a breakdown of the 11,250 retest of structure, then we want to be joining the decline to the downside. And if we sight a breakout of the $11,350 level, then a retest of structure followed by buying pressure on lower time frame will give us a confirmation to join the trend continuation to the upside. Then the next pair we looked at is the Euro USD, and on the Euro USD, we were taken out of our position in a loss yesterday, but something interesting happened in the last 24 hours on the Euro USD. As we can see, how the 0.98600 level has been holding buying pressure despite the strong selling momentum we've been witnessing since the beginning of the week. So because of this area here where we started seeing buying pressure multiple times here, leading into the breakout of this bearish trend line that has been holding price action since the beginning of the week, I'm of the opinion that we might be having a reversal pattern that will be sending price to the upside. So to make our job easier during the New York session today, I was able to identify a key level at the 0.9900 level, which is a strong psychological level considering the nature of the considering the round figure of that price. So we can see how this level has been a selling niche for participants, breakout, breakdown, retest of structure, selling pressure. So one thing I'm waiting for right now, price is right back at that level. So one thing I'm waiting for at this point is to see a breakout of the structure. That is, we have an engulfing candle taking us right out of the 0.9900 level, then anywhere right above that level, probably a retest to structure, then will be giving us an opportunity to join the rally to the upside. So that is the perspective for any buying opportunity on the Euro USD. However, if the breakdown of this demand zone happens, that is, price breaks down, we have a bearish engulfing candle taking us out of that structure in such a way that price takes out all the buy position here, then we want to be seeing that move as a bearish signal. Then we wait for further confirmation in the form of a retest of structure, which also shares a confluence with both the bearish trend line and the bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame. Then we could take advantage of a trend continuation to the downside on the Euro USD. So that is that on the Euro USD. Then we went on to talk about the GBPUSD, where I told you that price is right within a very critical structure on the 1 hour time frame, as we are right around the very strong bearish trend line that has been holding price action bearish since the beginning of the week. And also we have a key level right around the 1.151500 level. So what we want to be doing here, what I said here is we want to be patient enough to wait for signals to happen to give us a confirmation of where price will be heading. So the first scenario we identified here was a breakout of this bearish trend line in such a way that price breaks out of the 1.15150 level. Then we wait for confirmation in the form of a retest of structure. It could be the retest of this level or the retest of this bearish trend line on lower time frame. Then we could take advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. So that is the first scenario we are looking forward to. Then the other scenario is that if we start seeing selling pressure here respecting this bearish trend line, and when we scale down to the 15 minutes time frame, we saw that the 1.15150 level has been holding selling pressure since the early hours of today. So we are not going to be selling here. We want to wait for signals to happen, and that signal will likely come in the form of a breakdown of the structure here at the 1.144900 level. If that happens, then we want to be seeing that as a signal that a retest to structure will be giving us an opportunity to join the decline to the downside. Well, for me, if a decline happens and price continues to move to the downside, I advise that you move your stop loss accordingly to protect your position. As remember, we have a very significant structure at the 1.14 area where we said we want to see our price action will relate to that structure. And if that happens, there is a likelihood that we might be having buying pressure from here that will be pushing price to the upside. And if that does not happen, a breakdown retest definitely will be welcoming additional position to our existing trade. Then we went on to talk about the XAUUSD, the gold metal. And on the gold, we are profitable on the gold as we took advantage of this breakout retest of the structure as at yesterday. And currently, we are running with about over 1,000 pips in profit at the moment. And for those who took advantage of that move, I congratulated you guys. And I said the next thing we want to be doing is to move our stop loss to somewhere below the $1,650 level to lock in some profit here, as we want to see how price is going to relate to the 1,655 level. And if you look into the past, we can see how this level has been holding selling niche for participants in this market. So we don't know what is really going to be happening here. Will this turn out to be a reversal pattern that will be sending price to the downside? We never can tell. Or we could have a breakout of structure, and if that happens, a retest should be giving us a confirmation to add more position to our existing trade. So that is that on the XAUUSD. Then we went on to talk about the USDJPY, which was the last pair we took today. I told you how we've been taking advantage of a bullish momentum since the beginning of the week. So we took advantage of this move at the beginning of the week. Then we took advantage of this move also after citing buying pressure above the neckline here. And we took about 150 pips before we started seeing selling pressure around that area, before we were taken out from where we moved our stop loss to. And since then, price has continued to decline to the downside. And the situation we have right now is that price is right back at the neckline of that reversal pattern that we identified at the beginning of the week. Remember, we identified this reversal pattern here, and then we saw the breakout of that reversal pattern. Price appears to have come back to do a retest of that structure, but because of the lower high that I have identified here, as you can see, price was unable to break the previous high here, giving us a clue that there is selling pressure in this market at this point. So as a result of this, we had this bearish trend line figured out. And so what we've said is that we are not going to be buying the USDJPY unless we see a situation where price breaks out of that bearish trend line, which also lines up with this key level at the 147.800 area. So if that happens, then well, we want to be seeing that as a bullish signal. But remember, we are not getting too excited, as we want to wait for price to give us further confirmation, either in the form of a retest of this bearish trend line or retest of the 147.800 level to take advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. However, if price comes up into this bearish trend line and we start seeing selling pressure here, we want to be joining at a breakdown retest of structure on our lower time frame. And if a breakdown of the 147 Japanese yen level happens, retest of structure, which also lines up with a bearish trend line here, followed by selling pressure on lower time frame, will welcome additional position to our existing trade. But if price does not go that far, that is, price does not go into the bearish trend line, that is, if price does not go into this bearish trend line, but instead breaks down the 147 Japanese yen level, then a retest of structure should give us leverage to join a potential decline to the downside. So that is that on the USDJPY, and that is that on for today. And it has been a wonderful moment. I really appreciate every single one of you, as it has been a wonderful day for us. And like I said at the beginning of the session, please be mindful that we have a series of major events coming up today. We have the ADP, we have the Fed interest rate decision, we also have the Fed monetary policy statement, the FOMC press conference. So these are very major events that's going to be serving as a catalyst, and definitely participants in this market are actually anticipating this event, as we've been seeing consolidation phases in the market, emphasizing the indecision right now. So whatever position you are right now, please and please try to lock in your position by moving your stop loss accordingly, so that we don't want to get caught up in any sudden scenario that might likely happen during or after the event. So on this note, I want to wish you best of luck during the New York session today, and I hope to see you same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, same place, Extra Speed Live. And let's come again here. Let's evaluate what we've been monitoring since Monday, and let's see how we could take advantage of trading opportunity again during the New York session tomorrow. So on this note, I wish you best of luck. Do have a wonderful day, and bye-bye.